Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
And good evening, and we are live, WCM Live broadcast right here. Good evening, I'm your host, Ed McQueen. I hate to start off like that, but of course, my co-host on my right and your left, none other than Miss April Garner Davis. We want to welcome you all to the program this evening. It's as usual, they're all very special, but this one, it kind of touches the heart a little bit in terms of our youth. And when we're talking about is none other than the annual Summer Enrichment Feature program directed by Miss Marjorie McIver. And but before we get into that, we got the mighty twins, the Porterfield twins, going to come back at us and hit us with all the news that's been happening. Some of the news that we need to know anyway, local, coming from. We call it the Porterfield Report. And I'm excited about listening and hearing what they have to come up with. And so let's get right to it, to the Porterfields, and then we'll come right back with our feature today, the Summer Enrichment Program we want to talk about. That's the 5th annual Summer Enrichment Program, by the way. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, those twins, man. So how you all doing today?
Good.
Doing good. You were doing great the other day at the city council meeting. So you must have a lot of stuff that you want to share with us. Plus the city council meeting before then. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's get with it. Who wants to start?
Me.
Okay. All right.
So as you know, on May 6th, there was a city council meeting on that Monday. And they introduced the new hires that were at the police office. And one of them was Mr. Bailey. They introduced a new K9, which I can't remember if it was a he or she.
He.
His name was Ada. No, it doesn't. That's a girl. Her name was Ada.
Ada.
Her name was Ada. They did some presentations. They did one presentation of Tree City USA designation, and Miss Ann. I don't know how you say her last name. Miss Ann Haler. Miss Ann Haler of South Carolina Forestry Commission. They gave her a plaque for that presentation. They did a proclamation of
Resolution.
Yeah. Resolution of May as Military Appreciation Month, which they did that for May 24th. They also did for May 24th a proclamation for National Tennis Month. They did a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month, which I like. A lot of people can appreciate that for mental health awareness. So thankful for that. They did a presentation by Jimmy Manning of Heart and Souls. And he did a quote that says, "I pledge to build a stronger and more purposed community by advocating for civil engagement, respecting others and their viewpoints, and finding solutions for the betterment of my city." Thank you.
All right. So, as you know, we also had a council meeting yesterday, May 20th. It was The mayor, as you know, the mayor wasn't there. She was out of town on another business trip. So they had another council meeting held. It was short, but good enough information. First, we had a consent agenda for the final reading of ordinance for an approval of an agreement to lease city-owned property located at 163 Busby Street. The second approval was for a special event for Summer Jam Family Night that's going to be held on June 27, 2024. So I recommend bringing family out to enjoy, the summer night and everything like that. Another approval was for a resolution for the Waccamaw Seratoma Club for 50 years. And the last approval was for the council meeting minutes for May 6, 2024. The public input, I would say it was interesting because this time I could tell it by the language they speak and their accent, they were foreign. And as many council meetings as me and my sister has went to, there's not a lot of foreigners that would go up there and say anything. So that was kind of interesting, but I couldn't really make out what they were saying or anything like that. But also some more information. There were special presentations as well. The presentation of the Employee of the Month was go to Public Works for May 2024. Another proclamation was for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And a proclamation for recognizing National Safe Boater Week, which the Coast Guard actually came down to receive the plaque for that. And then there was a presentation for a recognition of the Waccamaw Seratoma Club for 50 years. And then there was a discussion of state insurance benefits program regarding county and municipality council member coverage by Mr. L. Smith. And then the last presentation was about a request to annex approximately 11.22 acres of property located on Highway 501, but in between across from Walmart on going towards Carolina Forest High School. And also they talked about the wrestling that Mr. Ashley Smith held for the Conway Recreation Center, which it was actually pretty decent and fun. And that's all I have for the council meeting. Now, there was something that we did do with GMA, as you know, Miss McIver. There we went to, where did we go? Sandy Island for a trip. And
So basically, when we got there, we had to get on a boat to get over to Sandy Island, which that was actually cool because I've never done anything like that before. That was actually cool. And when we got over there, we had to get in. We could either get in the car and drive to the cottage, or we could have walked to the cottage.
Also, piggybacking on what she said, there usually on Sandy Island you can't really travel to and from there, but you can only travel by boat to get to the island. So which that is cool, but also Miss I'm trying to pronounce her name. Miss
It's okay.
Miss Harriet. She was mainly like our tour guide of Heritage and Hope. That's the name of the cottage.
And she also talked about the school that she went to. It was just basically two buildings. I want to say a middle school and a high school. Okay. I can't remember, but I would ask Gma because she I know she would know and everything. And also, she brought us to the church, which is on Sandy Island. And when we went to it, it was actually neat. We saw the school that she grew up to go to, and the island was just basically beautiful, basically. And basically, they're by water, so I like that. And then they also said to travel to get their personal needs and to get food and everything, they would have to go off the island to a boat, and then they will also have to leave their car right in a parking space where they get off to go to the boat.
All right. Yeah, you guys really had some activities going on for the past 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And we're looking forward to hearing for the future more information that our viewers need to know, especially about city council and stuff like that. So, well, appreciate you. Thank you. We're looking forward to you again.
Yes, sir.
See, Ms. Fuller there said that it was good information, so she's giving you all accolades. Keep up the good work.
You.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And welcome to your new employment at the Conway Rec Center, both of you now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll see you next week after. Sorry.
All righty.
Yes.
Well, all right, April. So what do you think?
Well, as always, it's a great report. You know, they had a lot of takeaways from both council meetings. And so it's always good to be able to receive that report from the twins, especially since it's difficult for most citizens to make the, city council meetings because of the time of day and, various reasons. But we always appreciate them coming on board for the broadcast to give us their take, their interpretation. And, rooted in facts, rooted in what was delivered. So I think it was all great information. Lots of good stuff happening. I'll tell you, they must have
people. I just want to let you know that there was not a complaint but a critic of the time at the city council meeting who came up to the podium, wanted to change the time from 4:00 to like 6:30. He said,
"Why not? I mean, more citizens will be able to attend." Yeah,
right.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say they must have a proclamation machine because there were at least 5 or 6 proclamations. That were given, and I mean, it's great though for the purpose of public awareness and to recognize and acknowledge these special events. Absolutely. And occurrences throughout the month. And they captured a lot of great information, Brother Edward. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next up, we have the Summer Literacy Program for Youth and Teens in its 5th year, and 3 special guests who will talk about the Summer Literacy Initiative for this year, the 4 pieces of literature that will be studied during the summer. And also, I'm sure they're going to lean into some of the activities and how our young people can register to be a part of this for the summer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Ms. Marjorie McIver, Ms. Zenobia Harper, and Ms. Tracy Bailey. Dr. Bailey, I should say.
Yes,
how are you all doing?
Dr. Bailey.
Good.
Good. And if I was remiss in mentioning any other prefixes, please charge it to my head, not my heart. Zenobia, are you a doctor?
Oh, of mayhem. And that's it. That's it.
Look, she knows it. She acts and she sends out information with the knowledge of someone with the doctoral.
Not even.
Oh, and I'm sure Ms. McIver has tons of honorary degrees stacked up somewhere in her house because she is just a wealth of knowledge and connectivity, and that's wonderful. So it's always good to see the 3 of you. And let's get into it for the summer literacy program. So who wants to kick it off? Ms. McIver, are you the mastermind behind all of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Yes,
I kind of think we all have been. So again, I want to say hello to the listening audience. And before I go into anything, I'd like to preface this with the fact that we have those two students, the twins, Destiny and Desmond, who give of their time. I think it's twice a month, going to city hall meetings, young as they are, and as much as they could be involved in outside of that.
Absolutely.
They look forward to that. And I commend them, commend the parents, and for supporting that effort, and you, Edward, in making that happen. Well, the summer literacy, as many of you know by now, is an offshoot of what we call Camp Rainbow. For 11 years, we had a forum where the young people would come to my home. Every room in this house was converted into a classroom. We've had as many as 30 plus students here. We had full-time certified teachers. The students learned Spanish 4 days a week. And then on that fifth day, aside from the math and the reading and the social studies, the guest speakers, we always had a wealth of guest speakers to come in and talk to the campers about, their career fields. And from that, we were able to take the young people on a field trip every Friday. In this home, we had breakfast every morning, and I'm talking about a full breakfast. And I taught the kids how to cook as well, because I was not going to absorb all of that on my own. We had lunch every day, and then we had a snack. So after COVID hit, we were no longer able to meet in this space as we once did. So there was something that we knew we had to do to stay connected to those same young people. So my daughter and some others came up with an idea of maybe doing some Zoom sessions with them and looking at some literature, some books that we could use that would help to enhance their knowledge. And within those books, we were able to draw activities and projects that the young people could do to keep that learning alive during the summer. And that's what we did. And we're in our fifth year. The first the first 4 years, we had several books. The one was Stella by Starlight by Susan Draper. The other was Ghost Boys, and that was by Jewel Parker Rhodes. And then we had The Watsons Go to Birmingham by Christopher Paul Curtis. And then The Green Book by Victor Hugo, and Opening the Road, which those three books, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, The Green Book, and Opening the Road, were all connected because they talked about traveling from one place in one space to another, and during the times when segregation was at its height. Well, I shouldn't even say height, because sometimes it's still high. But how Blacks could not go into certain spaces and places, and traveling from one destination to the other was very, very difficult, very trying, and oftentimes very dangerous. Because if you got stranded in, what do you call some of those, what do you call it, April? I think the desert?
Sundown towns.
Sundown towns.
You travel through there, you just have to pray your way out of it, because it was so dangerous in some instances. And those books taught the young people how life was at certain times. And then there was the movie, The Green Book, that some of them perhaps got to see. And then last year we followed Zenobia and Marilyn Hemingway and Steve Williams to Georgetown when they unveiled the statue of Harriet Tubman. And that was just a monumental event. And we took a busload of young people there to witness that. And this year, I don't know why I got so ambitious. And then I do know. The 1 to 2 books that we were exposing the young people to during the summer those 2 books were the only 2 books that reached the kids with the content that was within it. So this year, we decided to look at several books and show the connectedness with those books to give the young people more exposure to more of our rich history. So while we may have 20 folks reading Sleeping with the Ancestors, we have just as many young people reading Born on the Water. And then our male participant, we pretty much decided that Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson would be the book that we need to use for our young Black males. And if you have gotten inkling at all of what that book is about, it talks about a young Black lawyer who, of course, wound up practicing law in Alabama. And he shared the injustices with the system that incarcerated a lot of not just Blacks, but whites who were not as privileged, who perhaps could not find representation through the legal system. And that book is a must read, I believe, for all of our young Black males today, especially in light of all of these laws that are being passed and the laws as it impacts the gun safety and whatever. So Just Mercy is a book that I would recommend for families who have young Black males. The book Caste is one that only a couple of persons are reading, simply because of the high level of readability that's there. I was able to see the movie when it came out, and only certain theaters had it, and they only had it for a short period of time. I tried reading the book, and I'm telling you, it is a scholarly piece, but it's still one that I would recommend. And you go slow in your reading. You don't have to read it all at one time. But it talks about the caste system and how there's just so much similarity amounting between the systems in India, in Nazi Germany, and in the United States, and how the Germans used the slavery system in the United States to base what they did to the Jews. And it's just something you'll have to read, but know that you need to spend some quality time as you read that book. I'm going to skip over Sleeping with the Ancestors because Zenobia is going to share something with that book, but that is really the primary reading source that we will be using this year. And then after she shares, then I'll tell you about the trip that we have planned on June 22nd. Born on the Water, that's the 1619 Project. As all of you who have read anything about the 1619 Project, you know what that thick book is all about. Well, now they have this young people's version, and it is based on, I guess, the reading level Lexile score, maybe about 800 or so. And it's recommended for young people from 2nd to 5th grade. So we've purchased and given out quite a few of those books to our young people already. We're encouraging you to read these books, but you don't have to start reading until school closes, and give yourself a day to recuperate. But we know you're going through end of the year testing and all of that. But we put the books in the hands of those that we can get it to based on their age, developmental level, their abilities, and their interests. So all of these books are connected, and we have several others. For instance, Bertha Boykin Todd has a book, Reflections of a Massacre and Coup, and that's the 1898 massacre in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we are planning a field trip, a trip to Wilmington to learn more about that. But that's another book. And I think quite a few of our community people bought that book during the Martin Luther King program when Miss Boykin Todd came and spoke at the Martin Luther King program this past year. So that's another book that we're using in this series. And who else? I'm trying to think of some others, but anyway, these are the main books that we will be using. Now, the Sleeping with the Ancestors, Zenobia and her husband had an opportunity to meet with Joseph McGill under some circumstances that I'm going to ask that she shares with you.
So I think in 2015, we found out that Mr. McGill was going to be sleeping in slave cabins at Hopsawee Plantation here in Georgetown County. And so we contacted him because we were trying to find something to do with young men that were a part of the AME church structure. So the YPDers and that group of people. And we wanted to partner with him to be able to have the young people sleep in the cabins with him while he was on Hopsawee Plantation. So we created this whole program called Hidden in Plain Sight. So in Hidden in Plain Sight, what we were talking about as a part of the group activity was how enslaved African peoples communicated with each other in song and Gullah Geechee language, gestures, and those things out right in the sight of the people who owned them, but in ways that they were able to conspire to free themselves or to make their lives better for themselves. And so we had this big event, and then afterwards, Mr. McGill, several men from the community, and about a dozen, maybe 10 to a dozen young men slept on Hopsawee Plantation in both of the cabins that they still have left there. It was an opportunity for the young people to sit with their elders, engage them in conversation about how they were able to overcome the adversities in their lives. My husband, as a military man, several people were there explaining to them how they were able to educate themselves with no money, how they were able to pull themselves up out of poverty. So they were able to sit one-on-one with their elders and discuss and talk about those things, and also to be in the place where their ancestors were once property of other people. And so how your ancestors moved themselves from being someone else's property to owning their own destinies and creating a path for us to go forward as freed people with absolutely nothing, not even a roadmap forward. And so freedom was something that they had, I would imagine, had to imagine long before it happened for them. And then they had to make that freedom do what it did without any help at all. Do you know what I'm saying? And so if they could do that with nothing, with the not even having ownership of themselves, then with whatever you have, however small you think it is, however poor you think you are, whatever you think you lack, you are able to figure out a way to go forward in your life. And it was very powerful conversations, which we were not privy to as the women. We dropped the food off and we left them out there overnight on a cold March day or cold March night. And it really transformed not only the young men that were a part of it, but it transformed the old guys too. So to have that conversation with their young men, just them, was very powerful and important. Joseph McGill was able to talk about the importance of place, that plantation homes and plantation businesses and all of those things are kept, they are refurbished, they are restored, and people want you to know about these places, but they don't necessarily want you to know where the enslaved lived or where they worked. But those places are just as important to history. They're just as important to the American story as those big antebellum homes that the people who own them lived in. And so he sleeps around in these cabins to call attention to the importance of all of the spaces and all of the people that created what we now call America. It's very powerful. Was very powerful.
And I'd like to give a plug in at this point. I think every household should have a copy of this book. Every household. Now, we're not talking about slavery. And as Mr. McGill said, his project started out with the slave cabins. But as he traveled, he found out that slaves had dwellings everywhere. So he changed his project from the slave cabin project to the slave dwelling project. And he even talks in his book about how he had gone to certain places and they had the slave dwelling so spruced up that he didn't know whether to believe that they actually stayed there or whether they just, put that together for them, because it was hard for him to fathom, them living in such quality spaces. So that particular book, even though it talks about slavery, there is so much history surrounding every one of those cabins that he visited and slept in, or dwellings that he slept in. For the young people, I'm asking that you read up to chapter 9. I don't want you to get bogged into anything else after that unless you want to finish that book. And for those who want to finish those last few chapters, you can go on and do it. But I think the relevance of those first 9 chapters should give you a glimpse, of nothing else, into your history, which you need to know. Because we know if we don't deal with and learn about our history, we are doomed to repeat those parts of it that have not been pleasant to all of us. So on June 15th, we have a meeting at the Conway Library. Now, that is the same day that we have some other Juneteenth celebrations, and at the Smith-Jones Center, the Smith-Jones Board and the Whittemore Historic Society have gotten together in partnership, and they're doing a Juneteenth celebration at the Smith-Jones on the morning of June 15th. We've changed our schedule, so we will be meeting with all of the participants who are doing the summer literacy program. We are meeting from 2 to 4 at the Conway Library, and we will serve lunch there as well. So we're asking that you come out. If you're going to participate in this program, try to come out. We will also be Zooming in for those who are not able to attend. And then on the 22nd, we will be meeting with Mr. McGill, Mr. Joseph McGill, the author of Sleeping with the Ancestors. He's going to meet with our group alone, and he's going to autograph our books. So I encourage all of you to go and get your books now so that you can have it and at least have read some chapters in it before then.
So, Miss, I'm sorry, Zenobia. I was going to say, Miss McIver, I know you sent me some information, but if you can send an outline of all of the dates and times that you just mentioned, we can post that information on the WCM website along with the other summer reading initiative information. I know they can refer back to this video, but I'm sure they'll want,
Right.
something that they can reference. So anyway, go ahead, Zenobia.
So I just wanted to say that I think that Miss McIver is absolutely correct that Joseph McGill's book, Sleeping with the Ancestors, is a must for particularly low country African-American homes. But I also want to encourage people, African-American people, Afro-Southern people, whoever you feel is important to you, whatever topics you feel are important to you, have those books in your house. Have those books in your house. There's Jackie Robinson. Ain't he fine? I just want to read the book because the man's so nice looking. We want these books in our homes. Okay? We want your kids to be exposed to them so that they know who these people are and they're looking and understanding them through your lens, and that we are not making other people responsible for that, because people are not going to teach you the things that they don't want you to know. They're not going to teach you about the people that they don't want you to know about. And I want to turn it over to Tracy Bailey, Dr. Tracy Bailey, because she is passionate about young people learning how to read. So I want to hear from her right quick about what this whole national director for the Freedom Readers is, what Freedom Readers is doing now. It's a very powerful and important nonprofit. I'm gonna keep showing you books too. Y'all need to get these books.
Thank you, Zenobia. And first of all, I want to just really give flowers to April and Edward for this platform. I think it's been in our community now for how many years?
Well, including radio, about 10, right, April? Something like that? Since 20.
More than 10.
More than 10.
Yeah, about
It's been a long time, and I think that's something we need to pause and recognize and celebrate, because we really don't have enough opportunities to have conversations like this about the things that impact our community and the things that are so important to us. I am here this evening simply because I heard that Dr. Marjorie McIver was going to be here. And whenever she has something to share, whatever she is going to say, then I want to be sitting right next to her knee, so that when the wisdom falls out of her mouth, it may fall into my ear or onto my heart. I also want to be here with my friend Zenobia Harper, because she is another one of my heroes, another one of those people who will relentlessly and fearlessly stand up for our community and make sure that we preserve the richness and the beauty of our heritage. So I just want to spend a little bit of my time saying how privileged I am to be here amongst this very wonderful group. I love any conversations that have to do with books, because I think that books are so important, especially to our young people. I started an organization called Freedom Readers in 2010. And one of the things we say a lot at Freedom Readers is, once you learn to read, you are forever free. And that's something that was said by Frederick Douglass, who was born into enslavement, but then ended up being one of the most famous people on the planet at the time when he was alive. So, like Zenobia said earlier, if these people from our past can live in the conditions that they lived in and make something fabulous and valuable out of their lives, I am stubborn enough to believe that if we pour into our children, then they're going to be able to go further than we ever could imagine. And so that's why I love the fact that Dr. McIver has Miss McIver, has pulled together all these wonderful books. My husband had the opportunity to interview Brian Stevenson and visit with him a little bit in Alabama. So when I read that book, it just completely turned my mind around. And I believe what you're saying, Miss McIver, that everybody should be reading that book and seeing the movie. It was fabulous. But being connected not only to the history of enslavement, but what enslavement has done to our society since then, I think is the thing that will empower our young people to make absolute change. I also was able to meet Nicole Hannah-Jones earlier this year. She came, the one thing that I was able to say to her is, I wondered if your hair was going to be as red as it looks in all those documentaries. And it is even redder than that in person. And I told her how beautiful it was and how beautiful she is as a person to be able to be on the forefront of what's happening and just once again, fearlessly stare down anybody who is trying to tell her that her heritage and our history is not important. So, Born on the Water is a fabulous book, and I'm glad that it's being circulated in the community. As National Director of Freedom Readers, what I hope to do is establish more of these conversations around the country and share with different people structures that they can use to pour into the lives of our young people so that they can get excited about reading and pick up the books that they need to have in their lives that will help open up their minds. So just thank you so much for this opportunity just to be in the Zoom room or the StreamYard room or whatever you want to call this, because I feel really blessed. In the studio. I just want to be in the number. That's all.
Yes.
I'm glad to be in the number. Thank you so much for having me here today.
And again, at a time when Horry County, Williamsburg County, Georgetown County support the efforts of Dr. Marjorie McIver. We done gave you an honorary doctorate.
I want it in writing.
And others.
We can do that.
Who, even when they had the opportunity after many years of work to just sit down, has decided that she is not going to sit down, that she is going to continue to be a fierce and beautiful warrior for children. Absolutely. Support that. As a community, we need to support that. You don't need to support it the way me and Tracy do. We just say, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Whatever you want us to do, where you want us to be, where we going. But find a way to lift the wind up underneath her wings, because she's flying with a whole lot of children under her wings. And it's very important and very powerful work.
April and Edward, I'd like to say one thing, and then I'd like to go back to Tracy, because she has a powerhouse in her home.
Yes.
By the name of Isaac Bailey. And she cannot leave this program without telling about his accomplishment. And I've got the books. He came just so generously and brought so many books here. And I'm saying, well, how much are the books? Now, Miss McIver. I mean, I hope that she gives him some kudos before we do get off the air. But I do want to say that this afternoon, I had a luncheon meeting with Dr. Torian Hodges. And when I left that meeting, I mean, I was flying high. He is so committed to what we are doing, not me, but we are doing. The kudos for the job program. As a matter of fact, he was waiting for his intern to come in soon. I said, well, we're going to get you an intern. I don't know where we're going to find them, but the job program has been postponed this summer. But whoever it is that we can still work with and get them to some of these spaces, we will continue to do that. But the formal program will hopefully resume next year. But we still want to try to place some kids or find some type of employment for them. And while we were there, I mean, he shared of himself. His mother would not leave our meeting room. and she shared. So she will be traveling with us on some of these trips, she and perhaps her husband. But before I left that office, Dr. Hodges said, I want to do a scholarship too. So I said, okay. So he is on board, and he is going to give a $1,000 scholarship to a 2024 graduate. And so I think once we get the word out, once we spread the word, and they can buy into what it is that we are doing, and knowing that it is for the kids. Now I'm holding parents accountable as well. So as the young people read the book, we're asking the parents to read the book, because I've got a special treat for them, especially when we go on the trip on June 22nd. So I want to thank Dr. Hodges, his family, his mother, his father, all of those who are now coming on board with the sponsorship. So before I go into anything else, I got to hear about my Mr. Isaac Bailey. After April, whatever it is you have to say.
Well, Dr. McIver, I am very happy to tell you about Isaac Bailey. He is doing quite well. He is teaching at Davidson College, and he is working for McClatchy newspapers. You can see his column that used to run exclusively in the Sun News all around the country now. And so he is doing his best to continue to tell stories about the people who may not necessarily be at the top of others' priority list, but he is trying to be a voice for those people who may not have had their voices lifted up in the past. He has 3 books out there that people can pick up. The most recent book that he wrote is called Why Didn't We Riot? A Black Man in Trump Land. I think that one came out in 2021. And then the book before that was called My Brother Muchi, which is about redemption and loving those people in your family who may not have always been perfect, but understanding that no one is defined by just one bad moment. And the first book that he wrote has a very interesting title that always used to make my daddy chuckle. It's called Proud Black Southern, but I Still Don't Eat Watermelon in Front of White People. And it's a collection of essays that were published in the Sun News about his thinking and insights on race relations and community relations and human rights issues. So you can feel free to check all of them out.
So that was when he was with the Sun News, right?
Right. That book came out maybe in the early 2000s. Yes.
Very interesting read.
Yes.
Please do so.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of you have actually, I was writing down questions as you were talking and just thoughts that were popping into my head. And it's interesting, the synergy between the 3 of you, because you actually were answering my questions and I was just checking off like they've already answered that. They've already answered that. And the 3 questions that I have or had were rooted in why it's important for authors to continue, Black authors, to continue writing literature of this nature. And you answered that, but we can always circle back. The other piece that I wanted us to kind of dig into a little bit is the impact of summer literacy projects and programs like this particular one, and especially as it relates to elevating reading comprehension, vocabulary, just historical understanding for our culture, even amongst the age groups that are actually participating in programs like this. And as Tracy was talking, my mind went to statistics and thinking about what I'm sure she knows in terms of like literacy rates among our Black students and youth. And I just pulled up some information real quick. Ms. McIver knows that I'm good for doing that on air. But there's some information that I found that says that the literacy rate for African-American students in 8th grade language arts was 36.9% in 2019. Of course, that's a few years ago, but as we know with research, it's always, a little bit behind in the reporting. But it's also mentioned, and this is something that was published in 23, that basically African American children were reading at, or had access to reading materials at a lower rate than white children. So it seems to me that summer reading programs like this, of course, are answering the call to fill in the gaps because of the disparities that exist when it comes down to, literacy rates, access to reading materials, summer enrichment, and all of that. So, Tracy, how do we keep the momentum going when we know that there are these disparities that exist and our children need it now more than ever? I know, I don't know if you know, Tracy, but I'm now living in North Carolina, and all throughout the Triad area, there's always some type of a reading initiative. There are Black bookstores, Black-owned bookstores and things like that. And, I was going to ask Zenobia, are there Black-owned bookstores in Georgetown County? I don't know of any in Horry County. It seems to me that kind of getting behind some entrepreneurs who are interested in doing something unique, that would be one of the things that we could encourage them to do. So impact is what I like to talk about, especially since the statistics show that our children really need it because of a lack of access. And that could be inside and outside the school. So Tracy, you want to lean into that a little bit?
Yeah, I do, April. Thank you so much for that question. The first thing I want to point out is the fact that we are sitting now in the shadow of COVID. So I don't want us to forget about all of that time that so many children could not attend school, or children were trying to learn about reading and writing over Zoom. And a lot of that was not very effective. And there were a lot of kids who just sat out of school for a really long time. And so considering the history of the African American community and considering what we have endured as a community, we know that COVID hit our community hardest when it comes to things like literacy rates falling behind. Even before COVID was an issue, we could look at the literacy rates. And I think in Horry County, we could say like maybe 82% of our students from our community were not reading on grade level by the end of the third grade, according to a test. And so what we have to do, I believe, is identify young people and find out what they are interested in and start from where they are. Because if they're not excited about what we're sharing with them and they don't understand the impact or the way it's going to help them in their futures, or the way it can even help broaden their minds where they are, then they're not going to buy into anything that we're trying to tell them. So I think it really is like, we start with community, we start with what's important to them, we start with their culture, we start with things that excite them and ignite that love for reading, and then we build bridges from there to Shakespeare, from there to Isabel Wilkerson, from there to those books that have the higher readability level, like Ms. McIver was talking about earlier. But we have got to get to them on their level and let them tell us what they need, and then we follow them with the literacy.
Yes, I think that is absolutely on point. And especially since, when I think about what my generation had growing up, there were always bookmobiles, and I don't know if schools still have book fairs. I don't hear about them that much, but I think something that you said, which leans into telling our story and making sure that our history is a focal point when it comes down to reading. That's especially important now more than ever. And it's one thing to develop these types of programs and introduce the literature that's used, but making sure that I think making sure that the readers understand the importance of the selections, so that they're not feeling like, okay, I'm, like you said, Tracy, this is not really anything I'm interested in. Well, here's why you should be interested in it. Here's what we want you to understand. So I think that the way that Ms. McIver and the team creates a reading experience, which is we're reading, but we also have some interactive activities, really is a way to capture the attention of the audiences that are expected to read these books and participate in the program. So I think it's really important. And every time I read something about disparities in terms of math and reading and anything else that involves our children, it just remains an alarm, for, and it should be alarming for our community anyway. We should never sleep on it. But this is definitely one way to combat it, is to have these types of enriching programs each summer. So I definitely wanted to bring to light for the audience the fact that statistics show that our children are behind for various reasons. And you're right, Tracy. During COVID, it was, most apparent, especially with the lack of internet access and things like that. It was difficult for them to just, keep up with school, much less, something like this. And so, and I hope that is something that turns the curve so that we can say, once upon a time we had a literacy issue, and that will happen, if we're hopeful and we have champions like all of you who will keep doing this type of work. So,
April, just let me point out one thing. We're talking about these statistics, but I do want to make it clear that it's not because the kids do not have the ability to read. It's not because they're not brilliant. The statistics are not showing a lack of brilliance and intelligence and excellence. It's showing a lack on the part of the adults and the educators in their communities to engage them in the right way. So I think we really need to be honest and upfront about our responsibility, and we need to lean into our role into making it more accessible for them, getting those books in their homes and helping them understand why this is so exciting and why I can't put books down, why I'm on Facebook messaging Miss McIver about what I'm reading and what she's reading. And it's just blowing my mind. It's just, ideas are great. Like, it's like fire. Shut up in your bones, isn't it? So I'm done.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it has to be intentional. A good friend of mine, it has to be intentional. A good friend of mine in Winter Park, Florida, was talking to her today, and she has her nephews every summer. And she said, they know that, yes, they're coming to Florida and they're going to have a good time, but they're also going to read while they're here. And so she told them, if you're coming to Florida to spend time with Auntie for the summer, please know that reading is involved. And so she does that mainly because she knows that, like you said, as parents and guardians, the responsibility does fall on us. And, as a village, we have to help out. It's not that the parents are negligent in doing that part, but the reality is that sometimes households are so busy and overwhelmed by other factors that parents are trying to keep up with, like just keeping a roof over their head, keeping the lights on, keeping the kids fed. They're not even thinking about, and I also need to sit down and have at least 20 or 30 minutes of reading time and discussion, with my children. So she makes sure that that's a part of her nephew's summer experience. So anyway,
that was survival. That was survival.
I'd like to add one thing as well. The children who participate in this program, they've never had to worry about where the books or the materials, the supplies are coming from. We provide that, especially for those who can't. And as we continue with this program, we are finding out that we've got families now, families with more than 1 or 2 children. So we don't want them to have to pay for those books unless they can do so. So those books have been provided. And this year, I've had so many adults come up to me and said, I'm going to give you $20. Can you buy some of the books for those kids? So this is what's happening as we look at this village concept and who's responsible for whom. Am I my brother's keeper?
Yes.
So they don't have to worry about that. And all of the field trips that these young people have gone on, they didn't have to pay a penny.
They've gone on some fantastic trips too.
Thank you to Miss Joella McQueen and Edward McQueen, McIver Law Firm, Walker Primary Care, Dr. McIver, and now we've got another superstar on board. And
look out! Yeah, look out! He might pull your teeth.
As excited as the kids. Dr. Torian Hodges and his mom. I mean, they are very excited about this and are
Absolutely.
willing to do whatever they can, to help. And again, he's looking for you all to send some medical people his way.
Mhm.
So,
I really want to give Tracy an opportunity to tell people what they need to do or who they need to contact or call if they have a child that it needs help with reading, and how they can reach out to Freedom Readers for that assistance.
So if you are in the Horry, Georgetown, Williamsburg area, you should reach out to Freedom Readers. First, you can go to the website. It's freedomreaders.org. And our local executive director is Miss Tamara Green. And she can be reached on, you can give her a call at 843-331-8526. That's the telephone number for Freedom Readers, 843-331-8526, or visit the website at freedomreaders.org, or send an email to info, I-N-F-O, at freedomreaders.org. There are a number of sites located in Horry County, Georgetown County, and Williamsburg is to come.
Man, I tell you what, it's just too bad that there's not enough time in the day, to talk about all the things that need to be talked about, especially when you all come on. Well, it's been a while since Tracy's been on, but it's just as strong. But anyway, before we get off, I'd like to just regress a little bit. Just talk about I want to talk about. Just want to make an announcement about Mr. McGill, Joe McGill. Book, not just his book, but the fact that we have him scheduled for next week to come on the program. Okay, so everybody should be aware of that, hopefully, and he is committed to being on the broadcast, being our guest on the broadcast. That's the 28th, I believe. That's next week, right? Yeah. So look out for that. Okay, and one other thing, Mr. McIver, that book they call the Caste system. Maybe in the future, right, we can kind of explain to the average, I'd say the average person, what caste system means. Okay, what we talked around it, kind of inadvertently. So, but we need to know.
It's deep reading.
We need to know what the word, when they say caste, we need to know what it implies. Okay.
There's one other thing that I'd like to say, and I know there are a lot of parents on this, perhaps listening to this broadcast, but I do know there are so many parents out there that have children struggling in math, and they constantly are seeking assistance and cannot find it. Much like we have this type program for our readers, we are not as fortunate with our math people. However, a couple of years ago, I have a niece in Philadelphia who has founded an organization called Trapezium Math. She came to us and we did some Zoom sessions with our young people, and she got them so interested, involved. Even us old folks, we were there trying to work out these fun kind of math experiences. I talked to her about a month ago, and she has revamped her entire program. She's been on a lot of these news networks, national news networks and whatever. And she is giving us that curriculum free of charge. She will also come back on and reintroduce us to what some of the young folks benefited from. I know Orton Bellamy's grandson, he started with the group, and it cost a little penny. He started with the group and he finished with the group, and he totally loved it. She's giving us that curriculum free. She's also asking to have any teachers out there, anybody who's got a good background in math, who can probably teach the math. If you can connect with her, she can bring some math exposure and experiences to our young people. And I know you're all going to blow up my phone, but call me. if your children need some assistance in math. And I will try to get you connected to Dr. Her name is Angela as well, but that's Dr. Angela McIver.
Miss Marjorie, Miss McIver, we actually have the Summer Reading Initiative registration form up on the WCM Magazine website. I can show that now if you just want to kind of walk the audience through. Let me pull that up on the screen just real quick. It's a really simple form. If you visit www.wcmagazine.net and click on 2024 Summer Reading Initiative, this is what you'll see. It's right here in the menu, so it's real easy to get to. So, Ms. Mack, is there anything you want to say about this portion of it?
Well, April, you are such a vital part of this program, and you are the one responsible for putting this website up and the application on board as well. And once that's completed and filled out, it comes back to us, and I generate a spreadsheet with all of the information, and then I contact you. And now that you've seen these 4 books, you know your children, maybe you can tell me which of these books would be more appropriate for them. And then we also have some others, especially the one that we had last year, Harriet Tubman's and John Bowley's Most Something Excellent Adventures. That book is still very vital to what we are doing right now with this series. And anytime we find opportunities to take these young people across the corridor from North Carolina down to the northern tip of Florida, we're going to do that. We're going to travel. And Dr. Tureen wants to go to Montgomery, Alabama, to the Lynching Museum. I still call it the Lynching Museum because that's what it was. And with Brian Stevenson. So that is going to be another field trip for us. But to go back to this application, we need the parents starting tonight. It's already on the website. Start filling out that application and make sure that we have all of those components completed so we can have a profile of your child. And if you want to, if some space is there, space in there, April, I can't remember for them to make any notes or write something in.
I think there's a message space.
All right, if there's a message space, put in there your child's interests, what your child is interested in, and you send that right away. The books, you can order those books. Now, I saw where Mr. Evans still has his bookstore in operation. So you can contact him and see if he has any of these books that you'll be able to use. And then I will contact him as well, because I prefer to go through him if we can to get some of these books, because I will be making another order, putting in another order for books this week. So please let us know what your needs are. If you can afford to buy the book, please, by all means, do so. If you can't, just let us know, and we will make sure that you get a copy. Again, the young people don't have to start reading until start reading the day school closes. Yeah? That way your mind will not be idle. Okay?
All right.
April, you are such a vital part of this. Is there anything else that we've left out or need to share?
No, just, like Ms. McIver said, as soon as you complete the form, she will receive a copy of it. You will be contacted appropriately. And the information that she mentioned earlier, dates and times for I think there were some activities or events that you were speaking of. We can add that to the site as well. So Ms. Mack, if you will send me that, I will get that up tonight for you. And that's really about it when it comes down to that part.
Okay. Well, look, this has been, diamond in the rough. But again, before we go, I just want to make a clarification on the Dr. Hodges that you brought up, Ms. McIver, who's going to be contributing. He is a dentist, and his office is called the Inlet Premier Implant and Cosmetic Dentistry. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to send that to April to put up, but it's called Inlet Premier Implant and Cosmetic Dentistry, and it's Dr. Torian Hodges. He's the dentist there, of course, and he's located at 201 Chartwell Court, CHARTWELL Court.
And that's right off 544.
Yeah, it's in Myrtle Beach. I'd like to give you a number. I'd like to put up a number if we could, April. 843-215-5200. 843-215-5200. He's been my dentist for a while. So
I think I got the number right.
yeah.
215. Okay, 5200. Okay.
Right, Dr. Hodges, yeah. And he's the dentist there. So thanks. I want to thank everybody really for making this such a fantastic and successful parlay of information that the community really needs to know about. And this is the getting back to the annual readers. I mean, not readers, but the initiative by Ms. McIver. This is the 5th. Is that correct?
Right.
5th annual. Yeah. So I sent out a communique. I believe that was corrected as opposed to the original one, which was said the 4th. But this is the 5th. And next year, when we're sitting down here next year, we're gonna say this is the 6th. So we got to just keep that in our mind that this is gonna be the 6th, right? Okay. So the other thing is that I just want to clarify again is that there will not be a summer job program by the Royal Community Magazine this year. We regret that very, very deeply. There was some logistics that came up that we couldn't overcome, and everybody knows how the magazine how we feel about that, including April. That we really wanted to put that into play, but some things came up. And but it says one thing: we'll be ready for next year. Okay, that's all that says. We'll be ready for next year. Okay, all right. So, Godspeed to everybody, and thank you all so much again for participating. This is an OVM. All right. Okay. Just like opera. And congratulations to our intern you have there, Miss McIver. Okay. All right. Yeah. Can't wait for them material. But anyway, we'll see you next week to our viewers.
Yeah, and Brother Erwin, I want to say something about our viewers. We thank you all from near and far who've taken the time out on Tuesday nights to be with us. Bradell Beckman out of Columbia, Coretta Smalls out of Greenville, Betty Gauze from the big city of Bucksport with us tonight. Cassandra Campbell, my cousin Conway. Let's see, Laquanette Brunel. Of course, we love her. Thank you so much, Laquanette, from the big city of Loris, I believe it is.
Wow.
Stephanie, I'm not sure where Stephanie's from, but Stephanie joins us on a regular basis. My Gamecock sister, Yvette Pope out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you for joining us. And anyone else, Priscilla Fuller, of course. Like I said, if Priscilla isn't on with us, something is wrong. So
that's right. Something's got to be going on.
We thank her. And there are many others who are probably watching who didn't comment tonight, but we really appreciate it. And remember, there is a replay of this show on YouTube. So make sure that you share it from Facebook or share it from YouTube so that parents can get this information about the summer literacy program. So thank you all so much for being with us tonight. And to everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your week and a safe Memorial Day weekend. My gosh.
You got April,
the kickoff of the summer.
Look out for the next issue. It was sent out online, however. I'm sure most of you have it, but that's our next issue. We're saluting the neighborhood services of Myrtle Beach. They've done some fantastic things this past year. want to salute Cookie and her crew. That's where I'll put it that way. Okay, we'll see you next week. Godspeed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.